Hello and welcome to the Medical Sales Podcast. I'm your host, Samuel, founder of a revolutionary medical sales training and mentorship program called the Medical Sales Career Builder, and I'm also host of the Medical Sales Podcast. In this podcast, I interview top medical sales reps and leading medical sales executives across the entire world. It doesn't matter what medical sales industry, from medical device to pharmaceutical to genetic testing and diagnostic lab, you name it, you will learn how to either break into the industry, be a top 10% performer within your role, or climb the corporate ladder. Welcome to the Medical Sales Podcast. And remember, I am a medical sales expert sharing my own opinion about this amazing industry and how it can change your life. Hello and welcome to the Medical Sales Podcast. I'm your host, Samuel, and we have another special guest, and she goes by the name of Sara Schweitzer. This is a Stryker recruiter coming at you live, deep in the action of recruiting for Stryker, and she's in the spine division. Need I say more? This is the kind of episode you want to hear. If you're someone that wants to get into medical sales and you've been thinking about spine, you better be listening. If you're somebody in spine, you better be listening. And if you're somebody that's just wondering about the industry and you want to get educated, you better be listening. This is the kind of episode that's going to educate you thoroughly, and it's the kind of episode you want to hear. As always, we're doing our best to bring you guests that are doing things differently in the medical sales space. So I really do hope you enjoy this interview. So let's talk about it. Why are you a recruiter, Sara?
Why am I a recruiter? Wow. How much time do you have? So I, like most people who go into recruiting after college, I fell into it. I certainly didn't seek it out. I wasn't dreaming as a little girl to grow up and become a recruiter one day. I had gotten a job with a staffing firm pretty early on into my senior year. And I was like, okay, cool. The job's secured. I'll just do this.
Right.
So I started at a well-known staffing firm right after college, and there were parts of it I liked, parts of it that I didn't like. I always loved working on the roles that were sales-oriented, where I was hiring, young, fiery, excited sales reps that were kind of eager to kickstart their career and do something really meaningful. And so I became a corporate recruiter for that company, and that's where I got introduced to like true sales recruitment for an organization. There was always a part of me though that wanted to be in healthcare sales. Okay. I knew it really from a young age. I too also wanted to be a doctor, Samuel. So we're all cut from the same cloth.
Yeah.
And I remember I went through like a summer of watching Grey's Anatomy, being like, I could totally be a neurosurgeon. And then I had my first, this was back in college, I had my first bio lab where we were like dissecting something, and I honestly almost passed out. I've gotten so much better with it now. I've been in cadaver labs. I've gotten over that fear, but I was like, okay, no, I can't be a surgeon. But anyways, I knew I always wanted to be in healthcare, and then it kind of evolved to healthcare sales. And I actually had interviewed for a role at Stryker very, very, very early on in my career. And I made it pretty far in the process. I didn't get the job though. It was an orthopedic instruments sales associate in Philadelphia. And my God, that lit the biggest fire in me, because I was like, okay, you're going to pass on me because I don't have any sales experience. Well, I will show you. So I went and got a sales job at AbbVie pharmaceutical, selling their migraine line, which is one of the hardest companies to break into with zero experience.
Sure.
Launched 2 products there. Love the migraine portfolio at AbbVie. It's absolutely fantastic. Really life-changing medications. But while I saw success there, I was missing this passion piece. I didn't find it the most fulfilling being in pharma. I kept thinking back to my time hiring sales reps for my old company. And I thought, man, how can I marry those 2 passions where I love healthcare, I love, helping people get to their dream job. How can I combine those 2?
Well, before we even go there though, I want to know, I love the comparison you kind of, you highlighted, but I want to hear why. You mentioned that pharma was where you kind of kicked everything off. And you didn't like it, or not that you didn't like it, it wasn't fulfilling enough. Talk to
Yeah.
us about that. Like, what are you speaking to?
Ooh, I don't want to offend you. I know you were a pharma guy, and listen, there's a lid for every pot.
Oh, I'm pissed. I'm pissed, Sarah.
um,
I'm joking. Go ahead.
you're like, we're done here. Um, you know, I was in pharma during the heat of COVID, so offices were locked down. It was a lot of virtual. Can I get a meeting? Sending lunch, hoping someone gets onto the Viva Engage call. Um, and even when things started to open up, I felt as though I was, quite frankly, a glorified DoorDash driver. That was
Mm,
just how I felt each day.
sure, sure,
Um,
absolutely.
Not actually able to make a true impact on someone's lives. Well, yes, when patients got the migraine products that I sold, I knew for a fact that it would change their lives, but I didn't get to see that
Yeah,
directly.
you weren't
Obviously, I
you weren't
can't.
as closely connected to it as you wanted to be. And you're right.
Correct.
I mean, even, I did start in pharma and I graduated to biotech and beyond, but pharma, there's levels to it, right? There's general pharma, which is Me Too migraine products, which is what you're saying.
Yep.
There's specialty pharma where it's a little bit more intense. And then there's like oncology pharma where
Yeah.
your the way you develop relationships and your impact is really critical. And
Yes.
you better know what you're doing and how to do it. So I completely understand that. So you're saying that as a recruiter in that kind of space, it's one thing to be helping people that are that removed from the patient impact. It's another thing to be the person responsible for helping the people that are that removed, and you wanted to get closer.
Yep, exactly. I enjoyed the lifestyle as a sales rep. I knew what it took to be a successful sales rep because I considered myself one of those. Um, and I wanted to bring really eager people into this fold of medical sales or healthcare sales that had that same fire and that same
Sure.
passion that I had, but I wanted to
Sure.
have more of a direct impact. Exactly. Yep.
Okay, so then it wasn't okay. So because I was thinking you went from pharma sales rep to pharma sales rep recruiter, but it wasn't quite that. It was pharma sales rep, and then what was Concentrics? What type of company was that?
Yeah. So basically, the timeline was staffing firm recruiting, pharmaceutical sales rep. Concentrics was a sales recruiting job to get me kind of back into sales recruiting
Recruiting.
once I realized that was the route I wanted to be in.
So you
Um,
missed it then.
yes, I did. I did.
Wow,
I missed the actual act of helping people get a job.
I love it. I love it. And
Yeah, I missed that.
so,
There was something really fulfilling about calling a candidate and being like, "You got the job," and they're just like overjoyed,
what
and
game changer, right? Come on,
yeah, it's
come on.
really changing someone's
Hell
life and
yeah.
from in such a fundamental and meaningful way. So yeah, and then from Concentrics, I knew I was still kind of like I was turned down from Stryker, and I know that I need to prove all of them wrong there and end up there. So
Wow. So you put
um,
them in your sights.
yeah, so they were in my crosshairs. I knew I wanted to be there, and when I was at Concentrics, only a couple months in, I saw a job for a sales recruiter
Wow.
at Stryker, and I reached out to all my connections, and I was like, "Hey, the time to hire me is now.
And the rest
So
is
let's do
history.
this."
Let's go. Let's go.
And I got the job, and
Hey,
almost 3 years. I figured I was going to retire there, so a little bit of a speed bump with the acquisition of Spine, but I got to Stryker, and that's what matters. That's where I wanted to be.
hey.
So
And
I was
then
going to
two
stop
years
at
in,
nothing.
is it everything you thought it would be and more?
I love Stryker. I have such a soft spot in my heart for Stryker. I'm going to really miss my colleagues there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an incredible, incredible company.
Let's talk about it. So I do have one question though, and I think you're the perfect person to ask. We have put a lot of people to Stryker in our program. It's just been what it is. It's a great company that is open to hiring brand new talent that's looking to showcase their skills and be true players in the medical sales space. One thing we've noticed though is Stryker is really married to the Clifton Strength Finders,
Mm,
and we work with 300 companies. So from Boston Scientific to Medtronic to Everlife Sciences to Intuitive, I can go on for days.
yeah.
But Stryker is the only one that is that dialed in to Clifton Strength Finders to the point where they have a unique test for each division. Please just talk to me a little bit about that. How did that happen?
Well, the relationship between Clifton Strengths and Stryker started, I think, if my Stryker trivia is correct, started in the 80s. So
it goes
way
back.
before I was born. I wasn't even alive yet. But what I can say is everyone I think Stryker is such a sought after organization because it's incredibly challenging to get a job there.
Sure.
The Clifton Strengths, while it's a really valuable tool for our internal teams, it also adds that layer of additional challenge.
Sure.
It also creates the culture that Stryker has. Because everyone that works at Stryker is a go-getter, work becomes or goes above everything else. You wake up every morning and give 110%. You hold yourself and your colleagues accountable. It's supportive. It's fun. It's exciting. Stryker just has a very unique culture that the Clifton Strengths and the Gallup assessments do help create that culture, more or less.
Got it. That makes sense. Okay. And then the $1 million question. So Samuel, they loved me. Everybody loved me there, but I did not pass the Clifton Strength Finders. Yes, medical sales is not for me. That's just wrong, right?
Yeah, that's wrong. Yeah. That's
tell us why that's wrong.
That's wrong for a lot of reasons. Again, it goes back to what we talked about earlier in our conversation, where it doesn't mean that someone's not talented, right? That's absolutely not what it means. It means that your strengths and where you really thrive and what you're really good at might not actually align with a role where you're on call 24/7, 365 in the operating room, nonstop, doing XYZ. It might mean that you're a President's Club winner at, selling oncology for a pharmaceutical company, right? Or selling medical diagnostics. I mean, there's a million different ways that your skills can translate better into a different type of role, but it is a way for us to see, are you going to be happy in this role long term, and do your skills and strengths align with what is typically successful in a role like this? Doesn't mean you're a bad rep.
Now, when that happens, is it realistic for a rep to say, okay, I didn't pass this time, but I'm coming back? Or once you've taken the Clifton Strength Finders and that's the part that rules you out, it's done as far as that division is concerned?
Not necessarily. It's a data point. But it should encourage you to maybe explore other divisions within the organization or different types of medical sales or healthcare sales. But certainly not, your time here is done,
Forget it.
That. Give up on your dreams. No, it's not that.
Got it. Okay, let's dial it back now, 30,000 foot view, and let's get just into the general world of medical sales recruiting. What is the number one issue? Okay, first of all, let's see if we even see the same trends. So I feel like, gosh, after COVID, I mean, before COVID, medical sales was one thing. But okay, let me say, I'm gonna give you two variables here. Before COVID and before media, medical sales is one thing. I did see it as almost like a private world. There were a lot of, from medical device to pharma and everything in between, there was a lot of just privacy in what's really going on and how to get access to it. And those that were behind those closed doors, we lived in that privacy and we enjoyed all the benefits that came with it. And then the media kind of got wind and kind of, with the movies, and what was the first one that came out? Love and Other Drugs. Love and Other Drugs came out, and everybody's like, "Oh my gosh, is that what really goes on?
This is the life."
Right.
A free car.
Is that what we're doing? So, and then you had all these TV shows, and then COVID hit, and it seemed like everybody's like, "I don't want to do what I'm doing with my life anymore. Where else can I lend a hand as far as medicine is concerned?" And there was this huge just demand that was created in medical sales. Is anything I'm saying what you saw?
I think I started in medical sales recruiting when that demand was already really high. So I didn't necessarily see
the growth of that. That's 2 years. Yeah. You came in when it was already there. Okay, that's fair.
Yes, I came in when people were chomping at the bit to get into healthcare sales.
Okay, so then that brings us to our question then. So with the fact that it's such in high demand now, what is the number one misconception you think exists out there that you continue to see from people when it comes to medical sales?
Yeah. I can speak really well to spinal sales. The biggest misconception that I see is candidates will think that this is like a 10 to 2 type of job, like a very sexy, very glamorous job. They'll work 10 to 2 and they'll make millions of dollars a year. That is the biggest misconception. Thankfully, there are programs like Evolve that steer people in the right direction. Like, no, that's not what this is. But I would say that is probably by far. I have to like give people a very sad reality check sometimes. Like, hey, you're working 24/7, my friend. This is not 10 to 2. You're working very, very, very hard. And you are wearing scrubs every day. You're in the operating room. You're lugging trays and sets from point A to point B. You're working hard for the money that you make. Very, very hard.
Yeah. We see that too, where people they assume it's some sexy career where they're going to make a ton of money and be in and out of offices and surgeries and procedures like it's just a walk in the park. Okay. Now, so I'm going to ask you a series of these questions, by the way, Sarah, so be ready. All right. So number one, biggest misconception, which you've addressed, which is that a spine job specifically is 10 to 2 walk in the park. Number two, what is the biggest reason, in your opinion, that makes it so difficult for all of these candidates to get your kind of what you're the, for lack of a better word, gatekeeper for, which is spine jobs? What number one thing would you say, people don't have this, or people keep showing up lacking that? What is it?
That's a good question. I wish I could say it was one thing.
Sure. Maybe the most common, of course it's not one thing, right? But what's the most common thing? Or maybe top 3?
Yeah. So top 3 might be easiest to address. I think for me, number one is that initial interview that I'll have with someone. There's a lack of preparedness. There was no effort put into understanding the role, the company, anything about the industry trends, nothing. I don't see a lot of research that's done. So when someone does research, it really stands out.
Sure.
Because it's okay, if you came really prepared to this call, that tells me that you certainly would prepare for a lunch that you might have with a surgeon, or a call, that you have with a customer.
Right.
So that would be number one. I think 2 is I oftentimes hear what people think I want to hear.
Tell me more about that.
Yeah. Obviously in a first interview, I'm looking for someone, authentic, that genuinely really wants to be in this space and can provide substantive examples and reasons as to why this is where they want to be and how their skills actually would make them a good fit for this type of job. And you get that sometimes, but you also sometimes get the folks that they read online, okay, this is kind of what I need to say, or they do the chat GPT AI stuff, and it gives them basically like what to say in a medical sales interview. You know what I mean? And you can really fish that out.
We got you, Sarah. We got it. Thousands of people listening right now. We got to give some examples. Give me some. We got to hear this. Give us an example of what inauthenticity sounds like, and give us an example of what authenticity sounds like.
Oh, okay. Wow. So there have been times where I've been doing an interview with a candidate, and all of a sudden it sounds like they are talking off a script, like truly reading a script back to me. The question might be, tell me about a time when you felt like your work ethic was at its absolute peak, and why. And they're like reading verbatim something that's obviously on a screen. They're using really impressitive words that they weren't using
Oh,
before, right? Classic
remember
chat
their
GPT
different versions.
fashion. I'm like,
You're like, where did you come from?
yeah, I'm like, wow, oh my gosh, that's an interesting word. Like, do you have a thesaurus sitting next to you? I'm impressed. Um, so I'll hear that, and then that's an immediate red flag for me.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah,
okay, you don't mean what you're saying.
right.
You're trying to get to the next step, which I don't fault you for that, but unfortunately, that's going to be the reason that you don't
Right,
get to the next step.
right.
Authenticity is people that are obviously very confident about their skills and experiences and are very comfortable
Yep.
explaining to me clearly with their own words how their experiences relate to medical sales. They don't have to have a sales background, right? It could be a nurse who can explain how, he or she works nights, weekends, holidays, understands the grind, the lifestyle, gets the hospital environment and knows the type of work ethic that's required,
Right.
to even sort of be successful in medical sales, right? Like just the start of it, but they have that experience and they're able to relate it. Someone who started a side gig in high school mowing lawns, and that's how they paid for college, and like really authentic stories like that show me that you understand what it takes.
I love it. I love it. I love that. Sarah, you couldn't have identified that better.
Thank
That's
you.
real. I think you nailed it with that one. Give me number 3.
Oh gosh, I forgot that I agreed to 3. Okay, so the third one, let's see. Questions. Questions
Ooh,
at the end.
into it. All right. So
Yes.
you know what I'm
Oh
gonna
my
do?
goodness.
Tell us. Okay, go ahead. Give us the full. But I want examples though. So give us the full.
Okay. Well, first and foremost, if you have no questions at the end of my call with you, I'm not going to be happy. If you have one question, I'm not going to be happy. So, so that right there, that's a red flag. That's not good. Come prepared with questions. It goes back to the preparedness in the beginning with doing your research. If you did research, you'll have questions. That's just how it works. But there's one thing I dislike, and it's when I get a bunch of questions that someone basically, you can tell, went online and Googled, what question should I ask in a medical sales interview? Or what question should I ask in a sales interview?
Sure.
And you get like the day-to-day, what's the day-to-day like? Which I get, you can ask that question, but you should also kind of start it by saying like,
you got to bring that to the table.
You could start by saying, through my research online, I understand that my day-to-day is most likely going to be filled with X, Y, Z, but am I missing anything, or will there be any surprises? To me, that's a great way to ask that question.
Yeah.
So being really intentional about the questions that you're asking. I love when people say, "Oh, I read Stryker's a quarterly earnings report, last night." Like, cool, you did? That's awesome. Like, what did you find out about it?
They show they're invested.
Exactly. Yeah. So there's good questions. There's bad questions. Don't ask a question just to ask a question.
Right.
But I also love when even an entry-level candidate asks me about territory details. Who's the rep that I'll be supporting? Where are they stack ranked within the team? Did they hit quota last year? What are their expectations of me?
Yeah.
How many other associates will I be working with in this territory? Is it just going to be me? What are some of the hospitals and doctors like that I'd be supporting? Any challenges? Like, what are you hoping to find in a candidate to come in and make impact in this territory? Questions that are actually thought out are beautiful things, and I wish I saw more of them. But you do get a lot of like, what's the day-to-day like? What is the training process like? Which is fine. It's a fine question.
Yeah.
But I mean, sometimes I'll get questions like, like if one time I got a question from someone, no fault to them. They were new to the industry, but do I really have to be on call? Yeah, like unfortunately you do. Yes, that is part of this job.
Sure.
Um, and then the follow-up was, so like on the weekends, like if someone calls me, I'd have to go in. Yes, that is what on call means. That means that you're dedicating about 2 weekends a month to to doing that. So yes. Um, but yeah, questions. Have good
Yeah.
questions.
Yeah.
That's the third one.
No, I love it. I love it. Thank you for that. That was awesome, Sarah. So Sarah, I want to get into some tough stuff. I think this is the
Okay.
perfect place to talk about it.
Sure.
And I want to talk about a prejudice that exists, but I want your take on it. And please speak as freely as you can. Ageism. So let's talk about it. You know, I'm 50 years old and I want to be an associate sales rep in spine. You know, what is the reality of my pursuit? What are hiring managers thinking? What's Sarah, who's the gatekeeper to even getting in this interview sequence, thinking?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, follow your dreams. If that's what you want to do, go for it. There's no one stopping you. I
Yeah.
think if you're 50 years old and you really want to start at truly the ground floor in an industry that's incredibly demanding, that will take up all of your time and energy, and that's genuinely what you want to do, and you understand that just because you're further on, in your career within a different avenue doesn't mean that you're going to get to just blow through the ASR role and become a rep within 6 months. And, you're still going to have to do what the 24-year-old recent college graduate's going to have to do, and that's earn your stripes.
Right.
If you're comfortable with that, then apply. Nobody's going to stop you. You should. Life is too short to not. I think the reality is, though, a lot of those folks, when I do end up having conversations with them, quickly realize, oh, that's more work than I was maybe anticipating.
Sure.
And not all. That's, not to characterize, everyone in that light, but I just think if you really are passionate about it, go for it. And if you truly understand what it takes, then go for it.
Gotcha. Do you believe, though, that for people between 50 years old and 60 years old, there is a definite challenge to getting into a position like this, more so than anyone else trying to get it?
I think it's equally challenging for everyone across the board because there are so many applicants to just one job.
Mm-hmm.
The competition is unreal.
Give us some numbers. Give us some numbers. How many applicants to one job?
Wow, it depends. In a place like New York City,
yeah.
I could have 300, 400 applicants within a couple of days.
A couple of days, yep.
Obviously when you get to like the Midwest, maybe it's like 100 applicants in a week or something. Yeah. But yeah. I mean, still, it's a competitive industry. People sure. want to be in medical sales. They especially want to be at Stryker.
Right.
And it's equally hard across the board. I mean, you have to really stand out, resume-wise.
So are you saying that it's less about being older and it's more about there are so many variables that make it difficult that you might not have, that you see it as equal playing field for the young and older person when it comes to getting into a position on your
definitely equal playing fields for sure.
Got it. Interesting. Yeah. That's interesting. Okay, let's talk more about it. So with clinicians, nurses, physical therapists, chiropractors, mm-hmm. have you seen a growth in that audience? Like, are you seeing way more than before, or has it been consistent since you've been in the space? What are you seeing? I hope you're enjoying today's episode. And I want to let you know our programs cover the entire career of a medical sales professional. From getting into the medical sales industry, to training on how to be a top performer in the medical sales industry, to masterfully navigating your career to executive level leadership. These programs are personalized and customized for your specific career and background and trained by over 50 experts, including surgeons. Our results speak for ourselves, and we're landing positions for our candidates in less than 120 days in top medical technology companies like Stryker, Medtronic, Merck, Abbott, you name it. Would you run an Ironman race without training and a strategy? You wouldn't. So why are you trying to do the same with a medical sales position? You need training, you need a strategy, and you need to visit evolveyoursuccess.com, fill out the application, schedule some time with one of our account executives, and let's get you into the position that you've always dreamed of.
Yeah, I see a lot of nurses wanting to make the change into medical sales, especially travel nurses.
Mhm.
The caveat there is travel nurses typically make more as travel nurses than they do as an associate sales rep.
Right,
That's
right.
just the
But
reality of it.
it's not permanent, so it's still
Right.
way more attractive to work in Sarah's division. So with that, what do you think about that? How should a clinic, if a clinician listens to this right now and says, you know what, I've always wanted to be in medical sales. Man, Sarah's inspiring me right now. What should they anticipate? Should it be considered easy because they're a clinician? Or would you say, no, there are so many clinicians that want this now, it's just as competitive as everybody else? Or, what would you say about that?
I think it goes back to my earlier point where there's just a ton of eager talent from all different backgrounds, all different shapes, all different sizes, all across the board that are applying to these jobs. I don't think it boosts your chances, and I don't think it decreases your chances.
Wow.
I think it's competitive, and it's how you showcase your skills on your resume. I've had nurses, I've had nurses message me on LinkedIn, which I get a lot of LinkedIn messages. So if there's anyone out there that's messaged me and I haven't responded, I get about 75 a day. So I'm sorry.
You're slacking, Sarah. You're slacking.
I know. I can't. If I just did LinkedIn messages all day, I would get fired from my job because I would never actually be doing any recruiting. But I have had nurses reach out to me and say, give me like really compelling messages, not the whole like, oh, I hope this message finds you well. Can you tell me what jobs I'd be good for with this background? But I had one nurse in particular that stands out to me, her message at least. It was something to the effect of, I can only imagine how hard it is to fill a job in XYZ location. It was one of a more rural
Sure.
locations I was hiring in. And that was her subject line. And her first sentence was, maybe I can be the solution for you this time around.
Power.
You were like, hello?
Where have you been my whole life?
Because you know what? Let's talk about LinkedIn messages for 1 second. I'm going to derail us, Samuel,
do it. Let's go.
Because sometimes you get a LinkedIn message that's so different, but also like for that example that I provided, it solved my problem. She just did what a sales rep is supposed to do. Solve someone else's problem. She just did that for me. And I was like, yeah, you know what? It is really hard to hire in middle of nowhere, USA. Great. Let's have a conversation. I would love to talk to you. If people approached their LinkedIn outreach like that, oh my gosh.
Game changer.
Guarantee you they would hear back from recruiters, from managers, from reps. But instead you see a lot of I hope this message finds you well. What jobs on your website would I be good for?
I don't know you. Do something for me. Do something for me right now, please.
Yeah, it's like you just asked me to do a chore for you. Not your mother, not your wife.
Right.
I'm not going to do this chore for you. I know nothing about you. You didn't even send me your resume.
Right.
So I think LinkedIn, is still a great tool in such a competitive space to stand out. Using LinkedIn is invaluable. It's so important, but it has to be done the right way. Facts. I mean, you know that. It has to be done the right way.
Facts. That's beautiful. I love that you identify that. Okay, so let's switch gears a little bit. So as a recruiter, what do you really want? And let's speak specifically to Sara, specifically to Stryker, specifically to spine. Describe and I'm not going to use perfect, I know better, but describe the ideal candidate. Describe the ideal candidate.
The ideal candidate for me, for our division, it's someone that is incredibly gritty, tenacious, has that just like fire in them that you can feel when you talk to them. It's someone who is able to clearly articulate their skills, their accomplishments, their strengths, and how it relates to the job. It's someone who can showcase that they're coachable. It's someone who can take feedback, constructive criticism, take it well, and then implement the feedback. And really two more things. Someone who can build trust very easily and very quickly with internal teams, customers, anyone they come across. They just have that ability to build that rapport, build that trust. And someone who's just not afraid to work hard, like really not afraid to put their nose to the grindstone and say, yeah, this job is going to be so hard. This is going to be the hardest job that I ever have as an associate sales rep, but I want to do it. And I'm going to do it. And I'm going to do a really good job doing it.
I love that. So
don't ask me to repeat those. I don't think I'll be able to.
No, we captured it. It's good. That is fantastic. Okay. So as a recruiter, Sara, do you see a lot of what happens to the talent you bring on? Or would you say that with your position and the volume of people that you have to manage, you kind of get them in and then that's the end of it as far as they're concerned?
Oh my gosh, I love this question because one of my favorite things about recruiting is following my candidates throughout their journey. So at Stryker, I also hired for the clinical specialist division for our enabling technologies team. So they're OR based, not sales, but typically we'll go into sales afterwards. It's basically just it's a division that is so important, but also creates a really great bench for sales roles within the org. And oh my God, there is just absolutely nothing more fulfilling than when a candidate that I hired calls me and asks for advice about an interview that they have coming up for, endo or neurosurgical or whatever. Just a couple weeks ago, I was able to help 4 internal candidates that I hired move on to promotions within Stryker. I coached them throughout the whole interview process. I still text and do regular phone calls with my candidate. I mean, there's one girl I hired. She relocated from Nashville to New York City. She's like my little Southern angel. I talk to her for hours on the phone. Like I've become friends with the people that I've hired. And I'm so proud to see them grow in their career. It's so fulfilling.
Oh, come on. That's a beautiful thing. No, I love that. You mentioned clinical specialists. I would love to talk about that just for a moment. What is the difference between a clinical specialist and a sales rep? And then it's a 2-part question. What's the difference? And then who's the best person qualified to be a clinical specialist versus the best person qualified to be a sales rep?
Okay. So to answer your first part, I think clinical specialists are most comparable to associate sales reps. So they're both kind of, entry-level roles, for lack of a better way to describe it, like getting into the organization. Clinical specialists are product experts. They represent, in my case, they represent a suite of technology, surgical navigation tools and imaging tools. And they are in the OR every single day, very hands-on, supporting surgeons and surgical teams with that technology. They're not selling the technology because the instrumentation, the equipment, it's already been sold to the hospital. They're there as more of a support role. And then the ASR, or the sales associate, They are obviously on a sales specific track. So they work very closely with the sales rep. They're mentored by the sales rep. They cover cases still, of course, they're in the OR, but they're also doing a lot of inventory management. They're doing sales calls. They're doing business development. They're involved in negotiations and contract writing. So it's going to be more business and healthcare blend, whereas the clinical specialist role is a product expert, OR based. Sometimes you can help with sales, but it's not your main function.
Got it.
So that's the first part. And then the second part was ideal candidates for each
Who qualifies
group.
yeah, exactly. Ideal candidates
Okay.
for each.
So typically for our clinical specialist roles, we do see a lot of recent college graduates. Caveat to that, they do not have to come from a healthcare background at all. They don't have to be a bio major or a biomedical engineering major or anything like that. I've hired real estate agents, nurses, folks with economics degrees, business degrees, bio degrees, engineering. I've hired all different police officers, all different types of people into clinical specialist roles. But I've also hired similarly all different types of people with all of the backgrounds that I just mentioned into sales associate roles. So I think the difference there is if you have a sales background, go for the sales associate role. If you don't have a sales background and you really want to get into the medical technology space, then go for a clinical specialist role. You might have a better shot, but it's a similar candidate pool, to be honest.
Sure. And maybe it's unique in spine, but we've seen a lot of clinical specialists, a lot of clinicians have a great time getting clinical specialist roles very quickly. And from our vantage point, faster than non-clinician professionals. And what we see is that every company kind of defines what it means to be a clinical specialist differently. But for your space, where do you see clinicians faring? Does it matter? More clinical specialist, more associate sales rep? What would you say?
I think it doesn't necessarily matter broadly. It's to your point, the woman that messaged me on LinkedIn was a nurse, and she clearly has saleswoman written all over her. Like she knows how to be a salesperson.
Yep.
Just that's where she belongs. But I've also talked to nurses that actually really would just prefer to be in more of a clinical setting without the hassle of having a future quota, working on 100% commission, et cetera.
Right.
I think it really is a personal decision on what you want your life to be like, what your career goals are. Are you comfortable working a 100% commissioned job? Once you become that full line sales representative, do you want something that will always have a base salary? Kind of doing a little bit of soul searching that will help dictate which bucket the clinicians will fall into.
Makes sense. Yeah.
But I mean, they're good for either of them, honestly.
Yeah. That's fantastic. Okay, we're gonna come to a close, but before we do, one more subject I want to tackle with you is follow up. So when it comes to follow up, right?
Ooh, follow up.
Straight from the mouth of a recruiter.
Okay.
What is it about it when the interview's been had? Let's do two scenarios. One, where the interview's been had, you've closed, you even got a commitment on we'll get back. We plan to get back to you in a week. Come around, crickets, nothing, and you're like, what the heck? Sarah told me they were going to be contacting me within a week. What do I do now? And then I have another scenario for you, but let's answer this one first.
Okay.
What's the advice?
Yeah. So first and foremost, recognizing that if it takes a little bit longer to receive follow-up from the recruiting side, we're all human. Send a follow-up email. So to your next point, send a follow-up email. I mean, first of all, you should be sending a follow-up email within 24 hours after an interview, whether it's with me, whether it's with a manager, a rep, someone you just connected with on LinkedIn and had a casual conversation with. You should always send a follow-up thank you email. Always.
Yes.
Goes without saying. Don't send me a text, please. I don't want a text message, especially if you don't say who you are, what role it was for. I don't know who you are. I don't save everyone's number. Yeah, that's a different podcast story. But yeah, send a follow-up email. Gosh, don't, I mean, it's your career, right? Take control of it. If you closed and you felt like you did a good job on that interview, even if you felt like you didn't do the best job on that interview, but if you closed and you got a commitment that you would hear back within a week and you don't, follow up.
Okay. So
Check in.
follow up, you check in, nothing happens. Don't worry.
Yeah. Be persistent, but don't be too persistent.
Wait a minute. Okay, so I'm a listener now.
Okay.
Sarah just said to be persistent. And the next sentence, Sarah said, don't be too persistent. And now
Let
I'm
me
like, what does
explain.
Sarah want?
Let me explain, because there's a smart way to follow up, and then there's a way that tells the manager that, oh my God, if you did this to a surgeon, we would surely be blacklisted.
Sure. Okay.
So too much follow up would be an email, every day, every other day,
Okay.
a couple times within 1 week. That would be considered too much follow up. Truly, too much follow up.
Every day is extreme. Yes.
Every day is like,
What's happening? Like,
that's scary.
Right.
We've gotten to the scary, the scary world there. I think an appropriate follow-up is, it goes a thank you email within 24 hours afterwards. If you do not hear anything, another email a week later checking in. If you still don't hear anything, another week later, or maybe a little less than a week later, maybe like 5 to 7 days later, you check in one last time and you say, what's going on? Wanted to check in. I'm very excited about the opportunity, reiterating why I'm a good fit for this role, blah, blah, blah. And unfortunately, I'm also going to apologize on behalf of hiring managers and recruiters across the entire world. Sometimes things fall through the cracks. But if you don't hear back within 2-3 weeks, unfortunately, it probably didn't work out. Woo. To be honest. I know that's tough and it's hard.
Okay. Next question, and then this is the last one as far as scenarios is concerned. So now you've sent Sarah some awesome message, and she was like, oh my gosh, I will give you some of my time because this message is unique. Out of the 74 messages I got today, this one is very unique. So I'm going to give you some time. And then you hear nothing. In fact, you even have a conversation with Sarah, and she loves you. You hear nothing. What do you do?
So the question is, I've talked to I've given them my time. I've talked to a candidate, and then they don't hear from me again.
Maybe you even told me, you like, oh, you're great. Apply. Yes, let's go. And then they hear nothing.
Yeah.
They don't get an interview date. They don't know what's going on. What
that does not happen often. If I want someone to apply to a job and they don't, I will blow them up until they apply. Or I'll say, if you have to apply within 24 hours.
Okay.
I have to see your application in there within 24 hours.
That's if they've messaged you and you've responded that they should, you better do it within 24 hours.
Yeah. Like if we've talked on the phone and I have already kind of identified them as someone that I think could be good, sure. And I tell them, great, in order for us to proceed, you have to respond, or you have to apply to the role formally. Sure. You have to do it within 24 hours. You have to do it within 24 hours. If sure. 25 hours, 26 hours, if you don't, unless you've told me why you can't,
yeah,
that's going to tell me that you can't follow through on your commitments.
Gotcha.
But otherwise, there have been times where I've done calls with people where whenever I do a LinkedIn call with someone, I always say, the ball's in your court, so-and-so. What did you want to get out of this? I can give you 15 minutes. What were you hoping to get out of this? So you also have to come prepared to those calls.
Right.
And if there was no objective set, no end goal reached, no agreement that we came to at the end of that call. You can't really expect there to it to go any further from there.
Right. Right.
You know, kind of like, for example, if you walked in to talk to a doctor,
Mhm.
and let's use pharma, for example, and you just talked about the doctor's weekend during your lunch with him or her, and then that was it. And then you get your data the next week and you're like, Dr. So-and-so never wrote my drug.
I wonder why.
Yeah, it's like, well, maybe because you didn't mention it, or like you didn't ask.
Sure.
You didn't,
Sure.
get a commitment.
Mhm.
Yeah, he's not going to write your drug. So for those LinkedIn calls, there has to be an objective. You have to lead the call.
Right.
You have to tell me what job you're interested in. You have to tell me why you're a good fit for the job.
Right.
And then there can be follow-up.
Yeah. Yeah. That was fantastic. Last question, Sara, before we do the lightning round. How do you make it all happen? Do you have a family? Are you solo, Sara, just out there changing lives, recruiting every day? How do you find the time to make all the magic that you do happen?
Wow. Well, I'm honored that you called it magic. I have a wonderful husband of almost 2 years.
Fantastic.
We met in college. She's amazing. I have a daughter on the way. I'm 8 months pregnant.
Oh, wow. Nobody saw that coming. Jesus. Okay.
Yeah, plot twist.
Congratulations.
Very, very pregnant. So daughter Caroline will be born in June.
Amen.
And early June. And then I have a dog named King who
nice name.
has been featured on Stryker's LinkedIn page before.
Look, King already started his career in medical sales.
Yeah, he is a LinkedIn influencer. You mentioned those earlier on. He is one. Right. He's precious and adorable, but that's my little family unit.
I love it. I love it. That's fantastic. Well, thank you so much for all the time, Sara. Your wisdom has been amazing to hear. Are you ready for the last thing we'll do today called the lightning round?
Am I going to embarrass myself during the lightning round?
I don't know. Are you?
Okay. Well, I hope not.
All right.
All right, bring it on.
I'm going to ask you 4 questions. You have less than 10 seconds to answer.
Oh, my God.
First question is, what is the best book you've read in the last 6 months?
The A Court of Thorns, or A Court of Roses and Thorns, whatever series back there.
The A Court of Roses and Thorns?
Yeah, I can't. ACOTAR. Yeah, it's like a fantasy. I never thought I'd be a fantasy girl, but I was roped into it, and my team all read it, and we just
immediate fans. Okay, I'm gonna have to check it out. Okay.
You wouldn't like it.
No,
I don't think you would like it.
Oh wow. Okay.
I mean, try it. Follow your dreams. Try it, but don't say I didn't warn you.
Okay. Fair enough. All right. Next question. What is the best movie or TV show you've seen in the last 6 months?
My favorite movie of all time is This Is 40. It's the only movie I ever suggest watching ever with Leslie Mann. My husband gets annoyed because he'll say, "What movie should we watch tonight?" And I'm like, "This Is 40." And he's like, "We watched that 2 weeks ago." But it's the only movie.
Accurate, huh?
Yeah, it's the only movie I will ever watch.
Wow. So. Is it funny or,
hilarious? It's hilarious.
Okay, gotcha.
It's so good.
Love it.
I do recommend you watch that one if you haven't seen it.
Okay. Now we want the meal here and the item and the restaurant location. What is the best meal you've had in the last 6 months?
I have not actually been super social because I was very sick in the beginning of my pregnancy.
I'm sorry.
The best meal that I had, my husband I was craving a cupcake. And my husband made me a chocolate cupcake with homemade raspberry frosting. Wow. And there is nothing that hits more and hits better than when you desperately need a cupcake and then someone gives you a cupcake. It was...
Now did he develop this skill or he's a baker?
He bought a mix for the cupcake, but then found a recipe to make the frosting.
Wow. That's impressive.
And whipped it up for me. Yeah, it was next level.
For him. That's pretty impressive. Finger snaps for him.
Yes.
Okay, last but not least, what's the best experience you've had in the last 6 months?
I'm gonna sound like such a cliche, but the best experience has been carrying my daughter. It's been a really cool journey. It's my first. We're not going to count King because I didn't birth him myself, unfortunately. But yeah, carrying my daughter has been such an incredible experience. It's been filled with a lot of lows and a lot of highs. It's been exciting, hearing her heartbeat, seeing her on the ultrasound, knowing that in a couple months I get to actually hold her.
It's beautiful.
That's been the best experience in the last 6 months for sure,
Amen.
by a landslide.
Capital A. Amen. That was a capital A. Sarah, again, thank you so much. How can people find you?
On LinkedIn only. I do not have social media outside of LinkedIn. Samuel, we can have a chat about that another time. Another one of the perks of recruiting. But yes, on LinkedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn, Sara Schweitzer. That's the best place and the only place.
Sarah, it was real. Congratulations on the budding family. Can't wait to hear all the great news. And thank you so much for your wisdom on the Medical Sales Podcast.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. This was fun.
And that was Sara Schweitzer. Wow. She just unloaded with gems and pearls, and I hope you were taking notes. You know, it's fantastic to have someone like herself that really is dealing with candidates trying to get opportunities to improve their lives and patients' lives each and every day. So if you're wondering about this, if you're thinking, wow, you know, I want to do the things she's talking about, but I don't really know how to do them. Or, yeah, I've tried all those things, Samuel. It's great she said all those things, but none of them have worked for me. Then you already know what I'm going to say. Go to evolvesuccess.com and let's have a conversation, fill out the application. And then if you're just listening to this podcast and you get value from this show that we put all of our energy and effort and grit into, please go to Apple Podcasts and rate the podcast. Subscribe, rate it. Show us that you really love listening to these episodes and you want more. And make sure you tune in next week for another episode of the Medical Sales Podcast. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And remember, I have a customized and personalized program that gets you into the medical technology industry as a sales professional or any type of role for that matter. Become a top performer in your position and masterfully navigate your career to executive level leadership. Check out these programs and learn more at evolvesuccess.com by visiting our site, filling out an application, schedule some time with one of our account executives, and allowing us to get you where you need to be. Stay tuned for more awesome content with amazing interviews on the Medical Sales Podcast.